Right. So we are reading IKIGAI. We are in chapter 4, page 58 of the book and page 41 of the PDF. You're on strategy 1. Shimangla?
Should I start from
Yeah,
strategy 1?
strategy 1.
Choose a difficult task, but not too difficult. Schaffer's model encourages us to take on tasks that we have a chance of completing, but that are slightly outside your comfort zone.
So again, what does this mean? We saw it in Magical Child, where the matrix system is there. To know the next matrix, the child uses the first matrix, the matrix of the mother, to go and explore outside and come back. So it is little outside his safety zone, but within range of his safety zone. So again over here, if you take a task up which is too difficult for you to do, then you will get discouraged. So you have to raise the bar slowly. Like if I'm doing push-ups for that matter. Now I can do 5 push-ups aram se. Then I raise the bar, I want to go for 7 push-ups. Then I raise the bar, I want to go for 10 push-ups. So slightly outside your comfort zone, because if you're operating in your comfort zone, then there is no growth because you'll be stuck again in the circle. So you need to push yourself to go to the next level.
Every task, sport, or job has a set of rules, and we need a set of skills to follow them. If the rules for completing a task or achieving a purpose are too basic relative to our skill set, we will likely get bored. Activities that are too easy lead to apathy.
So it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't interest you. Something that holds your attention will always create a slight amount of stress, not too much of stress. Okay, so that you pay attention to what is happening. Now, apathy, if you look at it in the scale of consciousness, it's like at 30. Okay, in the power versus force scale of consciousness, I think it's at 30 or 40. So when you're apathetic about something, your energy levels are totally gone case.
If, on the other hand, we assign ourselves a task that is too difficult, we won't have the skills to complete it and will almost certainly give up and feel frustrated to boot.
So again, we have to, if we can't do something, then again we will be below 200. Okay, we'll get angry, we'll get flustered. So again, I'm on the left side of the grid. Apathy will put you on the left side of the grid. So we need to have challenges which puts us on the right side of the grid to actually create what I keep repeating, that all manifestation takes place on the right side of the grid. Now apathy is in the left side, anger, frustration is on the left side. So it is not going to work for you.
The ideal is to find a middle path, something aligned with our abilities but just a bit of a stretch, so we experience it as a challenge. This is what Ernest Hemingway meant when he said, "Sometimes I write better than I can."
So I write better than I can. When you hook onto the flow, you'll find everything starts to work. Okay. And you actually do better than you normally do. Now that becomes your benchmark. So now again, at a conscious level, you strive to achieve that. Then you go into a next level. And then like that, you keep going into the next level one after the other.
We want to see challenges through to the end because we enjoy the feeling of pushing ourselves. Bertrand Russell expressed a similar idea when he said, "To be able to concentrate for a considerable amount of time is essential to difficult achievement."
So again, focused attention, concentration. And that can only happen if you're thinking of one thing. If I'm thinking of two things, I cannot be focused and be attentive to the task that I am doing. That is again where the Monroe stuff comes in, where you still your mind so that you can focus on one task at a time.
If you are a graphic designer, learn a new software program for your next project. If you're a programmer, use a new programming language. If you're a dancer, try to incorporate into your next routine a movement that has seemed impossible for years.
So what does this mean? Again, you are just challenging yourself. You're doing something new. So again, we come back to that question. When was the last time you did something new? Because it's only when you do something new that new neural pathways get created in your brain. There is more stimulus, the juices are secreted, which start making you healthy and much better at doing whatever you are doing. Because you're constantly integrating a lot of stuff and making a new khichdi out of it. You understand? So that's another reason why we are exposing ourselves to so many modalities, because we can pick up and then you can start specializing in whichever one you want to.
Add a little something extra, something that takes you out of your comfort zone. Even doing something as simple as reading means following certain rules, having certain abilities and knowledge. If we set out to read a book on quantum mechanics for specialists in physics without being specialists in physics ourselves, we'll probably give up after a few minutes. On the other end of the spectrum, if we already know everything a book has to tell us, we'll get bored right away.
So again, you have to create the mid path where you know something but you don't know everything. You are able to understand, but it is not too easy. So again, that challenge comes into play.
However, if the book is appropriate to our knowledge and abilities and builds on what we already know, we'll immerse ourselves in our reading and time will flow. This pleasure and satisfaction are evidence that we are in tune with our ikigai.
So again, whenever we are in the flow, it means we have jacked into our ikigai.
Easy leads to boredom, challenging is flow. Beyond our abilities will cause anxiety. Strategy 2. Have a clear, concrete objective. Video games played in moderation, board games, and sports are great ways to achieve flow because the objective tends to be very clear. Beat your rival or your own record while following a set of explicitly defined rules.
Okay, so again, challenge levels. When we do the inner balance, in that you have scores. You have 100, you have green, blue, red, and then you have challenge levels where that challenge goes up. So it becomes more difficult to become in the green. And the more you challenge yourself, the better you become at holding the resilience within you. Okay, so this is true for anything that you do in your life. You can increase it. Like if you're making a dish, for example, you're cooking aloo ka sabji, you start it today. If you tell me to make aloo ka sabji, I'm going to take at least 1.5 hours to make it. But whereas you could maybe do it in 15 minutes time. Now you can increase your efficiency and do it in 10 minutes time. So like that, what happens is every time you have to raise the bar, and that's what allows you to achieve the flow.
Unfortunately, the objective isn't quite as clear in most situations. According to a study by Boston Consulting Group, when asked about their bosses, the number one complaint of employees at multinational corporations is that they don't communicate the team's mission clearly. And that as a result, the employees don't know what their objectives are.
So again, you have to have a laksh, you have to have a target, you have to have an objective. And again, in the Gita, when we are hearing what he's saying in the Gita, he's very clearly saying that as you attach yourself to a higher objective, the more stimulated you become. So you're following your karma. Okay. When you're doing your karma and you take up a higher karma, you'll always achieve a better living. Okay. So again, the employees have to know what is their laksh, what is the ultimate objective. If you do not know your objective, then you're like a rudderless boat. Again, when we go to houses to see the vastu of places, there's a frequency for the head. I find that frequency for me tells me that they don't have a plan in place. They do not know what they're going to do in the next 5 years. So it's like a rudderless boat. Chal raha hai. Everything is just going, but they really didn't have an objective in mind. So having an objective, but not be too attached to the objective, also becomes very important.
What often happens, especially in big companies, is that the executives get lost in the details of obsessive planning, creating strategies to hide the fact that they don't have a clear objective. It's like heading out to sea with a map but no destination.
So you go to the airport wanting to go somewhere, but you really don't know where you go. Now all the flights are listed. Duck, 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 duck. Now where are you going to go? So having an objective becomes extremely important.
It is a much more important task to have a compass pointing to a concrete objective than to have a map. Joey Ito, director of the MIT Media Lab, encourages us to use the principle of compass over maps as a tool to navigate our world of uncertainty.
So again, what happens? You have a map, but you don't know which is the direction in which you have to go. So then it becomes useless. So having a compass directing you to the objective becomes very important. For example, you also need to know where you are. For I want to get, I want to go to the Taj Mahal, but I don't know where I am in the world. How will I get to Taj Mahal? Because there's no way I can find my direction. So having direction, that is the compass, becomes very important.
In the book Whiplash, How to Survive Our Faster Future, he and Jeff Howe write, in an increasingly unpredictable world moving ever more quickly, a detailed map may lead you deep into the woods at an unnecessarily high cost. A good compass, though, will always take you where you need to go. It doesn't mean that you should start your journey without any idea where you're going. What it does mean is understanding that while the path to your goal may not be straight, you'll finish faster and more efficiently than you would have if you had trudged along a pre-planned route.
So again, what this is talking about is being able to adjust your plans to be able to reach your objective. If you're very rigid with your planning that no, I will only do this, then also it becomes difficult to achieve your objective.
In business, the creative professions and education alike, it's important to reflect on what we hope to achieve before starting to work, study, or make something. We should ask ourselves questions such as, what is my objective for today's session in the studio? How many words am I going to write today for the article coming out next month? What is my team's mission? How fast will I set the metronome tomorrow in order to play that sonata at an allegro tempo by the end of the week?
So you're setting yourself goals, you're setting yourself objectives so that you have something to work towards, you have something to aim at.
Having a clear objective is important in achieving flow, but we also have to know how to leave it behind when we get down to business. Once the journey has begun, we should keep this objective in mind without obsessing over it.
So now this is exactly what I have been telling you all, that we set an intent, we set a plan, then we throw it out into the universe saying that, see, this is my ultimate objective, this is what I want to achieve. Now you provide me with the opportunities which will allow me to achieve my objective. But if I'm constantly only seeing my objective, then I'll miss the opportunities that the universe is throwing up for me to be able to do right now. So once I set my objective, I have to get rid of it. So it says over here, once the journey has become, we should keep this objective in mind without obsessing over it. It's like that story which comes out, it's been coming in the WhatsApp. A farmer has planted a seed. Now, every time if the farmer goes and digs up the seed to see whether it's grown or not, the plant will never grow. So once you have planted the seed, you have to let the universe allow it to manifest and mature and when the time is right, the seed will become a plant. Okay, so that becomes very important. Set your objective and throw it out. This is what we do in the higher states of consciousness. We have planning in focus 12, planning in focus 15, planning in focus 21, where we actually create a plan and throw it out into that expanded state. And then we allow the universe to manifest it for us. Of course, doing what is necessary to be done. So whatever the universe is throwing up for us, we pick it up and we do it. So start saying yes to what the universe is saying. Get rid of the no, can't, shan't, won't. All these things need to get out of your life.
When Olympic athletes compete for a gold medal, they can't stop to think how pretty the medal is. They have to be present in the moment. They have to flow. If they lose focus for a second, thinking how proud they'll be to show the medal to their parents, they'll almost certainly commit an error at a critical moment and will not win the competition.
So again, at Olympic levels, if your focus wavers even if for a millisecond, you're gone. You get that? So what happens? If I'm thinking of something else, I can't be doing what I'm doing. Now, when I'm in the flow, I'm jacked into the present moment. I'm not thinking of the future, nor am I thinking of the past. I'm right there in the present. And in the present is where the flow comes out. It doesn't come out in the past or the future.
One common example of this is writer's block. Imagine that a writer has to finish a novel in 3 months. The objective is clear. The problem is that the writer can't stop obsessing over it. Every day she wakes up thinking, I have to write that novel. And every day she sets about reading the newspaper and cleaning the house. Every evening she feels frustrated and promises she'll get down to work the next day.
So again, she's obsessing over it, right? Now the idea would be, and this is the reason why people need to take short breaks when they are doing something focused. So if you're reading a book, read it for a certain amount of time and then take a short break. Very difficult to be just concentrated on doing one thing. Now watching TV, binging on TV is something else because it's actually hypnotizing you. It's actually stressing you out and you get stuck into that particular thing. You understand? Now, if you're obsessed about it, you'll not do. My suggestion would be just drop it. Stop doing what you're doing. Go and take a break. When you come back, then again you start with a fresh mind.
Days, weeks, and months pass, and the writer still hasn't got anything done on the page, when all it would have taken was to sit down and get the first word out. Then the second, to flow with the project, expressing her ikigai.
So what is it? Again, we come back to the 3 lists that Robert Monroe talked about: A list, B list, and C list. Okay. Now, what did he say? In the B list, do something about everything in the B list in that given period of time. What that sends a signal to our system is that I have moved in the matter. Now, as soon as that signal comes that I have moved in the matter, the obsessive thinking that we have about that particular thing, that I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, that drops and things can start getting done.
As soon as you take these first small steps, your anxiety will disappear and you will achieve a pleasant flow in the activity you're doing. Getting back to Albert Einstein, a happy man is too satisfied with the present to dwell on the future.
This is beautiful, right? If I'm happy in the present, then why should I need to think about the future? Okay. So the vague, I'll just read this, the vague objective: confusion, time, and energy wasted on meaningless tasks. And there is a mental block. Clearly defined objective and a focus on process is basically flow at both levels. obsessive desire to achieve a goal by ignoring the process, fixation on the objective rather than getting down to business, and it also creates a mental block. So if you do not have an objective, it's a problem. Overly being obsessed by an objective is also a problem. So you have to have a relaxed state of mind which will allow you to jack into the flow.
Strategy 3. Concentrate on a single task. This is perhaps one of the greatest obstacles we face today with so much technology and so many distractions. We are listening to a video on YouTube while writing an email, when suddenly a chat prompt pops up and we answer it. Then our smartphone vibrates in our pocket. As soon as we respond to that message, we are back at our computer logging on to Facebook.
So there was a study done that if you're reading a book, you will be disturbed 15 times in an hour. So as soon as you are disturbed, your concentration disappears from whatever you're doing and goes to that other thing. Now, when you come back to reading the book, again, you have to focus. So there's another stress which is created to figure out where you were and then to figure out what were you reading. Okay. So again, that stress is created. So every time you get disturbed, stress gets created in the system. And naturally, every time you're moving out of the task, you will find that if I could have read the entire book in maybe 1 hour, you will end up taking 10 hours to read that same book because you're constantly moving out of focus from the book.
Pretty soon, 30 minutes have passed and we've forgotten what the email we were writing was supposed to be about. This also happens sometimes when we put on a movie with dinner and don't realize how delicious the salmon was until we are taking the last bite.
So you're focused on the movie, naturally you're not tasting what you're eating, which is something that most mothers are doing now to their children, which is a big problem. I'll tell you, going forward, it's going to become a huge problem because the child is not focused on what they are supposed to be doing. They're focused on something else. I would like to confess that sometimes even I like to do this, watching a movie and having a snack or having dinner. I do that many a times. But having said that, because I'm so focused other times that I need that break, otherwise I have a problem. So that becomes my break time. Okay. Now, so for me, I have made it a strategy in my game plan. But if you're constantly doing that with your kids, that every mealtime you give them a tablet or a phone, I think you're creating a big issue with your kids.
We often think that combining tasks will save us time, but scientific evidence shows that it has the opposite effect. Even those who claim to be good at multitasking are not very productive. In fact, they are some of the least productive people.
So again, efficiency will come when you're focused on a task. If I'm doing multitasking, then I'm not doing any of the tasks actually. So if I can focus, I set out a time that for half an hour I'm going to do this. Okay. So then for half an hour, you're focusedly, attentively doing that. That automatically will improve your efficiency.
Our brain can take in millions of bits of information, but can only actually process a few dozen per second. When we say we are multitasking, what we're really doing is switching back and forth between tasks very quickly. Unfortunately, we are not computers adept at parallel processing. We end up spending all our energy alternating between tasks instead of focusing on doing one of them well.
So now what happens? It is said that we get 40 million bits of 40,000 bits of information every second with the sensory perceptions that we have, but we can consciously process only 40 bits of information a second. This is also one of the ways in which the movie runs. Okay, the movie screen, when that आजकल तो सब digital हो गया, but the screen that जो film वाला reel चलता था, that used to run at 40 shots a second. So we couldn't see the gaps. Okay, it was running at that speed. So if they slowed it down, then you could see the gaps in the middle of the films. So their movies have actually used this thing to make us seem as if we are seeing a seamless movie.
Concentrating on one thing at a time may be the single most important factor in achieving flow.
So again, we need to focus on whatever we are doing, and that can only happen if you're in the present. If you're in the past or the future and your mind keeps slipping away, it is not going to happen. Flow is achieved only in the present. It is not achieved in the past and the future.
According to Chi sent me hi, in order to focus on a task, we need 1. To be in a distraction-free environment. Number 2, to have control over what we are doing at every moment.
Okay, so a distraction-free environment. Some people can go into a discotheque and concentrate. Okay, why? Because the disco music is cutting out all the other sensory perception and they can focus on their task. So whatever works for anyone, where you can focus your attention on whatever you are doing, and then naturally you have to have control on what you are doing at that particular moment in time. And that one moment will actually get you a timeline and you can achieve a lot. So both things, focused attention and focused in doing whatever task you are doing at that point in time.
Technology is great if we are in control of it. It's not so great if it takes control of us. For example, if you have to write a research paper, you might sit down at your computer and use Google to look up the information you need. However, if you're not very disciplined, you might end up surfing the web instead of writing that paper. In that case, Google and the internet will have taken over, pulling you out of your state of flow.
So now Google and all these things, they're very, very cool about it, right? Something will suddenly pop up on the side and your attention will go there, totally diverted. So if you're not focused on your task, you'll keep fiddling around and ultimately you won't achieve your task. So that's why being able to focus on what you're doing becomes very, very important.
It has been scientifically shown that if we continually ask our brains to switch back and forth between tasks, we waste time, make more mistakes, and remember less of what we've done.
So every time your mind is diverted, coming back to where you were, let's say you're reading a book. Now again, you have to find where you're reading it, right? Your efficiency goes down. You have to again remember what you were doing. So again, every time it gets mixed up. So if you, again, it's simply a matter of focusing on whatever you're doing.
Several studies conducted at Stanford University by Clifford Ivar Nass described our generation as suffering from an epidemic of multitasking. One such study analyzed the behavior of hundreds of students, dividing them into groups based on the number of things they tended to do at once. The students who were the most addicted to multitasking typically alternated among more than 4 tasks. For example, taking notes while reading a textbook, listening to a podcast, answering messages on their smartphone, and sometimes checking their Twitter timeline. Each group of students was shown a screen with several red and several blue arrows. The objective of the exercise was to count the red arrows. At first, all the students answered correctly right away, without much trouble. As the number of blue arrows increased, the number of red arrows stayed the same, only their position changed. However, the students accustomed to multitasking had serious trouble counting the red arrows in the time allotted, or as quickly as the students who did not habitually multitask, for one very simple reason: they got distracted by the blue arrows. Their brains were trained to pay attention to every stimulus. regardless of its importance, while the brains of the other students were trained to focus on a single task. In this case, counting the red arrows and ignoring the blue ones.
So again, a person who's in equanimity, who is focused and in the present moment, will always notice more than the other guy who is fidgety and he's looking all over the place like that. Okay, so again, the person who's focused on the tasks that he has will always have that inner stillness within him. So always they will perform better.
Other studies indicate that working on several things at once lowers our productivity by at least 60% and our IQ by more than 10 points. One study funded by the Swedish Council for Working Life and Social Research found that a sample group of more than 4,000 young adults between the ages of 20 and 24 who were addicted to their smartphones got less sleep, felt less connected to their community at school, and were more likely to show signs of depression.
So whenever you're using a screen, right, nowadays, there is a stress which is created. When stress is created, it's eating into your energy. That energy, when you don't have energy, it automatically sinks into depression. Now, if I'm connected only to my phone, then naturally I'm not talking to people. We are not communicating. And if you're not communicating, a sense of isolation starts to creep in. And naturally, if you're addicted to your phone, you're not doing anything else. Now, if you see today's kids, how much time are they spending on the phone? You'll find they don't communicate in the house. Even on the dining table, the phone will be on. I have actually seen with my with my own eyes, 10 to 12-year-old children, years old children. There were 8 or 9 of them in one room. Okay, all of them were with a screen. They were not talking to each other. When we were growing up, we couldn't even imagine that. We were playing up and down, dark room, pillow fighting, playing board games. We were doing so many things. Today, what happens? They'll meet and they're on the phone, and they're even talking to each other on the phone rather than speaking to each other. Now, that's become a huge, huge problem today.
So here's a table. Concentrating on a single task makes achieving flow more likely, while multitasking makes achieving flow impossible. Concentrating on a single task increases productivity, whereas multitasking decreases productivity by 60%, though it doesn't seem to. The single task increases our power of retention. Multitasking makes it harder to remember things. Single task makes us less likely to make mistakes, while multitasking makes us more likely to make mistakes. Single task helps us feel calm and in control of the task at hand. Multitasking makes us feel stressed by the sensation that we are losing control, that our tasks are controlling us. Single task causes us to become more considerate as we pay full attention to those around us. Multitasking causes us to hurt those around us through our addiction to stimuli, always checking our phones, always on social media. Single tasking increases creativity, whereas multitasking reduces creativity. What can we do to avoid falling victim to this flow impeding epidemic? How can we train our brains to focus on a single task? Here are a few ideas for creating a space and time free of distractions to increase our chances of reaching a state of flow and thereby getting in touch with our Ikigai. Don't look at any kind of screen for the first hour you're awake and the last hour before you go to sleep.
So now today, what is the last thing that you all do and what is the first thing that you all do? I'm sure it's looking at the phone. Okay, so this is something that we need to get over.
Turn off your phone before you achieve flow. There is nothing more important than the task you have chosen to do during this time. If this seems too extreme, enable the do not disturb function so only the people closest to you can contact you in case of emergency. Designate one day of the week, perhaps a Saturday or Sunday, a day of technological fasting, making exceptions only for e-readers without Wi-Fi or MP3 players. Go to a cafe that doesn't have Wi-Fi. Read and respond to email only once or twice per day. Define those times clearly and stick to them. Try the Pomodoro technique. Get yourself a kitchen timer, some are made to look like a pomodoro or tomato, and commit to working on a single task as long as it's running. The Pomodoro technique recommends 25 minutes of work and 5 minutes of rest for each cycle. But you can also do 50 minutes of work and 10 minutes of rest. Find the pace that's best for you. The most important thing is to be disciplined in completing each cycle.
So have you got that? You need short breaks. And generally speaking, the attention span of a person is 40 minutes. Okay. This was the reason why most of the periods or the classes in school were for 40 minutes. You can hold the attention for 40 minutes, then you need a break. So any program which goes on for a very long time, you'll find that the attention starts to wane. Unless, the person is hitting a very, very deep state of flow, and where just everything just starts happening on its own, where there is no effort involved whatsoever, it's totally effortless, then that's a different ball game altogether.
Start your work session with a ritual you enjoy and end it with a reward.
So most sportsmen, you'll find they have a ritual before they go into the field, and if they don't do the ritual, it becomes a problem for them. So what does the ritual do? It's very much like the prep process we have in the Monroe thing, which allows you to actually understand it tells your body that yes, this is what the next step is, or I'm going into a meditation, or I'm going to the cricket field to bat, or I'm going into my office to do some work. So maybe you have a ritual of going to the bathroom, washing your face, coming out, wiping it, and then sitting down and working. So you get focused in working.
Train your mind to return to the present when you find yourself getting distracted. Practice mindfulness or another form of meditation. Go for a walk or a swim. Whatever will help you get centered again.
So again, you have to, in that break, you have to do something which gets you back into the flow.
What reward?
What?
End it with a reward.
A reward can be that for me, my reward is I'll go and watch TV for 10 minutes. If you get what I mean. Your reward could be, okay, I'm going to go to the fridge and have an ice cream. Or it could be that, okay, I'm going to just lie down and just sleep for 10 minutes. It could be anything. It could be that I hear music for 10 minutes or whatever.
Work in a space where you will not be distracted. If you can't do this at home, or go to a library, a cafe, or if your task involves playing the saxophone, a music studio. If you find that your surroundings continue to distract you, keep looking until you find the right place.
So again, environment is extremely important. If there is environmental stress, then you cannot function efficiently. Okay. And we've seen this again and again, and we saw this when we were doing work in the in BTD also. We told the parents that wherever your child is studying, etc., you have to see whether there is environmental stress in the place or not. Now, environmental stress can be distractions due to various things which have been put around there. It can be due to geopathic stress. It can be due to electrical stress. It can be due to so many other stress factors which are there. It could also be that the height of the chair is not comfortable for the child. So then again, there is a stress involved in that. So if there is stress, you'll never be able to function properly. So again, finding a good place for yourself. This is also one of the reasons why it was said that you should meditate on the same spot, because the spot also gets permeated with that field. it knows when you go into that spot, it acts like a preamble to your achieving a meditative state. So that's why they said that, and this was also the reason why they said do not give your asan to anyone also, because wherever you are sitting, if you put that asan, automatically you are sitting on that asan to do that kriya or to do that particular meditation or whatever. It automatically helps you to get into that state of consciousness. So environment becomes very, very important.
Divide each activity into groups of related tasks and assign each group its own place and time. For example, if you're writing a magazine article, you could do research and take notes at home in the morning, write in the library in the afternoon, and edit on the couch at night.
So setting a routine. Okay, if you set a routine, then you send the message to the body that, okay, this is the right time to do this. So it gets into your biorhythm, and then it becomes easier to do that particular task.
Bundle routine tasks such as sending out invoices, making phone calls, and so on, and do them all at once.
So again, related tasks you can do at the same time.
I think we should stop here. It's 3:22.
Okay, okay. So we'll start from here tomorrow, on Monday. Any questions? Anyone wanting to say anything?